But anyway, welcome to the Coaching and Flourish podcast. I am your host, John Andrew Williams, and here I am with Raj Anderson. Thank you for joining us for this live Q&A. How are you doing, Raj? How are things?
I'm great, John. I'm trying not to get distracted and jealous by your tea. I can't wait to hear about the tea house.
It is really good.
Yeah, it sounds lovely. And I could hear the ritual when you were pouring it. So that in itself was peaceful. Yeah, I wanted to.
A guy one. Here's my guy
Oh,
one.
wow. Gorgeous.
And then my cup. I got this as a gift after a speaking event in North Carolina, and it was one of my favorite talks I've ever given. You know, like sometimes when you give a talk and it feels like you're just on, you connect with the audience, and so it reminds me of that. It's a lovely thing. It's a lovely thing.
Well, thank you for sharing, John. And I just wanted to start with wishing everyone a happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day. I just got a text from a Moise. I'm going to send her a quick text. Yes.
Got a few ladies in your house, haven't you, John?
We do. They are amazing. Each of them is a powerhouse. It's a real honor and a privilege to be connected to them. And happy International Women's Day, everybody. It's a big deal.
It is. And I've got a question around that. I thought it would be interesting to just explore a little bit, especially since the theme for International Women's Day is around breaking the bias. I wanted to ask you, what does breaking the bias mean in coaching for you, John?
Right. I think what going away just for a little bit and coming back, it's fascinating when I'm slipping back into things, feeling myself see coaching from a third person perspective. And one of the things that I see coaching is we are expert listeners. When it comes down to it, and I feel like so much of the training that we do for people, so much of what we actually do to help, in the training process is to help people become aware of their own filters that they're using to listen. And what we're seeing from research, what we're seeing from recent political polarization, what we're seeing from like different political movements, the war in Ukraine, all of it, all the propaganda that's created, is that the perspective or lens through which we see confirmation bias is intense and it's real. And what coaching does is it helps us become aware of the filters and perspectives that most people are not even aware that they have. And this shows up in the way that people connect. You can feel the quality of someone listening to you. And when someone is listening to you who is aware of their filters, who is aware of their biases, it's not that we can listen without them. That's not possible. We always have to listen with the perspective, with the bias. Like that's always going to be present. But there's a certain mindfulness that there is something there. It's the mindfulness of the bias. It's the mindfulness of the filter and the presence. That's what we learn in coach training. And the cool part is, once we're aware of that in coach training, then we can ask ourselves, where else does that bias or perspective show up in other areas of our life? Because it does. And when we grow, when we become more and more aware, increasingly aware of those of the bias that we have, we open ourselves up to a richer, kinder, more meaningful life experience, and that's what I see happen in the coach training world, and that's happened to myself. Like in my 20s, it continues to happen, even as we progress here.
So I'm always hearing like two parts, isn't there? There is also checking in and growing yourself as a coach, isn't there? There's looking at your own lens and perspective and own biases. And then there's helping a client with their biases. And something I was curious about when we did the inclusion coaching program, which we will be doing again this year, everyone. So look out for that. We talked a bit about kind of a coach being in the space of also being in expert bias. And Carly Anderson, MCC coach, writes a little bit about how do you manage your own desire to be an expert or fix it for a client. What are your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I mean it comes in different ways to us. Like sometimes people who have, let's say, a counseling background, and so there's a certain expertise there that is extremely useful, and it's also fundamentally different from coaching. So there's a challenge of being able to take the skill set of counseling and being a counselor and compartmentalizing that and having that be one gear that people can shift into, and then also being able to work in a coaching mode completely, which sets aside that expert mindset, sets aside that tug, that natural inclination to help. And I think what happens in the coaching world, people who are attracted to this profession, people get into it because they want to help. It's not for people who think, oh, I'm going to get in here and I don't know. It's by its very nature, it's a helping profession. So people who get into coaching want to help, and the first thing they have to learn is, oh, I help most by not helping. That's doesn't make sense on the surface level. On a deeper level, it's about empowerment, and it ties into our even societal structures. It's like the empowerment of women, the empowerment of people of different races, different sexuality, different different biases that we have that have been woven into our cultural fabric, to become aware of them, to mindfully undo them, to confront them, to see them in yourself when that comes up, how uncomfortable that is. I feel like there's a lot of work for humanity to do, but we have systems and structures to do that work, and there are pathways that people have taken, and there are signposts that you can tell you're on the path or not. I love your thoughts as well on this, Raj, because I feel like this is central to coaching. Like this idea is a central coaching idea.
Absolutely. So, as you're talking, also thinking about kinds of tools that you might use as a coach. But the last bit that you were talking about also made me think about how we have to hold the mirror up to ourselves, don't we, as coaches, and how we stretch and grow. And I have to think about familiarity or kind of sameness bias. So, who are you as a coach doing business with as well? And it can be a challenge when you have a niche, or, I do a lot of work with women in leadership. Yet for me, it's that stretch and that growth of also doing work with women that aren't just like me. I work with women globally from all over the world and different backgrounds. And yeah, we're looking at leadership, but often as women are very different to me. But one of the things I do like to do is also push and challenge myself. So I like to take on coaching with men as often as possible. And I also work with young people occasionally because I don't want to get too comfortable in sameness or be bringing biases or assumptions in my coaching. And it keeps me on my toes because I do have to kind of adapt and flow and dance in a bit of a different way when I shift gear.
Right, right. Yeah, there's benefit in the marketing of coaching to express expertise, and that's useful. And there is a knowledge basis of coaching that I feel like is legitimate. The challenge becomes, how does a coach share expertise or knowledge and balance curiosity at the same time? And what I found is the best way is directly say, these are my ideas, this is what the research says, or this is like my idea for you as a client, and then shift back to curiosity and say, well, how does it apply to you? How can we make this your own? What would you modify or change or shift to make it fit exactly you? These are beautiful questions, generous questions. And as much as we can as coaches to get the expertise into the hands of the clients, the more empowered the clients will feel. They will rise to the occasion. All good things happen when we move in this direction.
Something that I'm curious about, John, what about you? What's the difference for you in coaching men versus women?
I don't know. Most of the work I did was with students. 80% of the coaching that I did was with high school and college students. I found no difference. Um, the Perhaps the only difference is that maybe the male clients I worked with, a larger percentage of them struggled with trying to balance in time management versus video games, which I feel like is really challenging. That's about it. There, um, being a parent of both two girls and two boys. Yeah, I think there are. It's just, there are things that are different. But I feel like in the coaching realm, when we're working with someone in the coaching realm, hopes, fears, desires, motivations, on an individual level tend to operate in, I don't know, familiar ways from a coaching standpoint. Having awareness of the context and certain challenges that other people may face, based on what they look like and their gender, how they identify gender wise, is really useful. I mean, I feel like this is fundamental coach training, and coaching as a profession, the society in general as awareness. It's a strategic advantage for coaches to educate themselves in inclusion and diversity. And I mean, that's just like the very, very baseline level why, like, because you get a strategic advantage. Not to mention, the you know the almost moral obligation to be a good human being, to be aware of challenges other human beings face, like, and to bring empathy for everyone to increase their empathy, and take deep breaths and listen to people whose views might be different from your own. There is still things to learn from other people. There is a deep reason why those people believe the things they believe. Let's get curious about it. And so a lot of it is replacing judgment with curiosity, and to find ever increasing ways to do that. That's the coaching journey.
I know we could keep talking about this, Sean. So, but are you good if I move us on to the
Please.
next
Yeah, this is
question?
great. Yeah, this is wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, so next question. What would you say to someone trying to reach their dream goal, but friend and family or naysayers are causing them to doubt themselves?
Do you want to go for it first, Raj?
I couldn't help but think of immediately of a coaching question. I was like, I would
There
love
you
to
go.
speak to this person,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
for me, I was curious as to, why others' opinion is so important. What is coming up for this person? Why is this opinion important? Another question for, I would be curious about, what other areas in your life have other people's opinions held you back? So those are kind of coaching questions that are coming forward to me. Yeah, I was also curious about, you know, it can be easy to look at this just from coaching question, but think about my own experience going into business for myself and being a coach. I had plenty of naysayers or people. Even now, there can still be a bit of a stigma, or people are quite surprised, or what does that look like for you? And I think you do have to do that work on yourself in terms of your own self-trust and self-resilience. And I think when you're in a relationship or marriage or partnership, for me, we had to do a lot of designing the alliance when we moved to the States, around the fact that I wasn't going to go back into a corporate career, and this is something that I wanted to explore. And I messed up many times. I would say I failed many times, although my saying is there's no failure, there's only feedback. And there were times I had conversations with my spouse, and he was like, it might be time for you to get a job. And I had to keep believing in myself higher than anybody else could have believed in me at that point. So and there's all those things to think about. And tool suggestions that I might give to people is even do a SWOT. Look at your strengths and your weaknesses and opportunities and threats in terms of a decision you're making, or if you're choosing to leave a career and go full-time into coaching. I think one of the biggest pieces of resilience you have to build is within yourself first.
Right. It's a thing. Part of one of the reasons why certain educators have moved away from grit and have embraced resilience is this idea that grit gave the impression that being successful rested entirely within the person. Like somehow we just need to grit it out. It's a character trait or flaw. And there were students who had very little support at home and had faced incredible challenges. And to tell them that they needed to somehow find a gritty characteristic and it was their fault if they didn't succeed was unfair and unkind. The strength and support of a network around you definitely plays a role in your strength of resilience. People with more resources to tap into are simply more resilient. And that's not fair, but it shows up. So if someone is in a space where someone very close to them is very actively negative on this, that is really challenging. That is not an enviable position. And if you're in that position, it's hard. There's no way around it. And yeah, coaching questions, going in there, design the alliance, looking at what's real, not real, all of those things. It's heroic work. From a pure practical standpoint, one of the things I am most proud of, and I feel is extremely important, is the connections with other members in the coaching community who are up to similar things, to form almost like a daily check-in with people. Every day at 2:00, I'm going to check in to look at my progress and say what I need to do. And, group of 3, find and build that support network mindfully, knowing that if you do that, your resilience will increase. I'm in the lucky position that Amois and I, we feel like we've been on the same page for this whole thing, and it's always felt easy. Like this is the thing to do. We never really had a plan B, and of course things had to shift and change through this process, but I've had family members, friends think that we were out of our minds. What is coaching? That's not going to work. And I've had mountain biking buddies, buddies in Portland and things like that, who have always dreamt of doing something, but their spouse did not want them to, and their partner said, "No, like you need to not. I'm not comfortable taking that risk," and they never did. They stayed at their jobs, and they're still at their jobs. That's hard. It's a hard. It feels like a very adult type of conversations, decisions to make, things like that.
I really love what you're saying about surrounding yourself with support and connections, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, really important. And especially if you are, it can be very lonely, can't it? Launching a business on your own,
Right.
and you have people around you who probably are not ill-intended. They actually care for you, and they probably want the best for you, and thinking, and it's not their values or their map of the world. Their values are probably, I don't know, being in a corporate career or whatever it is, 9 to 5. So I think that's what's been really important for me as well, and why it's really important for me to continue to be part of Coach Training EDU, because you do get inspired and you can have conversations. And I think if you're part of a community and a network, or you have a coach, or you have a mentor who's in a coaching field, you can at least run those fears by and share stories, can't you?
Right. And it really does it. Coaching in general, like when you're meeting one-on-one with clients, the depth and level of connection there is so intense. It was so fulfilling that your first handful of clients, when you're working with them, the sessions themselves are fulfilling. Like they provide meaning. I remember feeling like even bad sessions, I still felt like I was changing the world and helping students on a one-to-one level, and then helping executives, and make some really big decisions that was going to have an impact on the direction of whole organizations. That's our impact. That's meaningful. And those conversations are deeply fulfilling. And they helped me feel not so lonely, because they were just amazing. I mean, just like, wow, that was a human to human connection. Wow. Uh, and when you're grinding admin, website, marketing, all that, you and a computer type of work, it's lonelier than anything. And we need people. So, I think it's part of a strategic plan to find ways to have supportive people in your life. It's not just a nice thing, it's a strategic thing to do in establishing yourself as a coach.
Thanks, John. We've only got 3 minutes left, so I don't know whether we start the next question.
Let's start it. Quick answers are fun too.
Well, you have answered this before, yet this comes up a lot. And, maybe we need to do a specific video on this, or it's in the book, but how does coaching differ from counseling and therapy?
Right. This has come up again last week, a couple weeks. It feels like it comes up a lot. I think, well, first, all of counseling and all coaching are not monolithic. So it's not like all counseling is the same, or all kinds of coaching are the same. There are different flavors, different types, even in those worlds. That being said, the fundamental difference I see is that counseling works from a knowledge basis. Coaching works primarily from an empowerment basis. And the idea behind a knowledge basis is that the expertise still stays with the counselor in the room. And the counselor is looking for patterns and matching patterns with known studies that have scientifically supported interventions. We're talking on its most basic level of counseling. The advantages to that is that counselors will sometimes have insights based on their study, based on their experience, based on the science, that can be tremendously valuable to clients. And especially when there's something that is clinically not, when there's something clinically not working, there can be other referrals to psychiatrists. There can be, especially when the challenge levels reach certain, when the challenges reach certain levels where something, it really is, a larger issue. Counselors are equipped for that in a way that coaches are not. Coaches operate from an empowerment basis where they strive to be experts in curiosity and in awareness of emotion, thought. So when you're operating from that basis, a coach is not looking for a diagnosis or something that this is the knowledge, this is the pattern that they see, as much as they're operating from a deep sense of curiosity and listening. And yes, sometimes a coach can bring in knowledge and then they shift back to curiosity. And yes, counseling can absolutely lead to empowerment. So it's not like, it's not like you have to do one or the other. It's just which is the primary of, which is the primary driver. And I view them as different. They have different feels. They have different goals and different outcomes, and different problem sets that they solve. So that's my short answer on the heart of the difference between the two professions.
Thank you, John. I know we're on time, so maybe at the beginning next time we can explore a bit more. I'd like to see your thoughts, because I think sometimes coaches can trip themselves up a bit, and the deep exploration and the learning and being can feel, I've heard coaches say, I'm not sure if this is this coaching? Is this therapy? It feels like there's a therapy feel to it. So it'd be great to explore that a bit more. This time went super quick today. It
It did. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you back, John.
Good to be back. Well, thank you, Raj. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been another Q&A session for Coaching and Flourish podcast. Thanks, community. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.